welcome to the Swift Half, your weekly session of chat from the UK OCR and adventure running scene. Each week, pub landlord Alan and our favourite regular Ian discuss races, runners and anything else that comes to mind. So pull up a pew, pour yourself a drink and join us for the Swift Half.
No, Ian, I'm not doing jazz hands this week. Ian, welcome to the Swift Half. How are you?
I am so disappointed. I'm going to do jazz hands instead.
Hey!
Hello, listeners.
I was about to do it then, but I'm like, no, I'm not doing jazz hands. I'm going to stay with it because no one sees it on the podcast. So I thought, no, I'm not doing it. What an amazing weekend, Ian. We've got so many notes to talk through on today's. There's so much happened, but the first note you end up putting on is like completely off. But we're going to come back to that in a minute. Let's go straight into what are we drinking this week. So, Ian, what are you drinking?
Well, today I am drinking. I can't even remember if you'll know what this is. Sorry, I'll rephrase that. I am unclear whether you'll remember what this particular drink is. I'm going to show it to the camera.
Chocolate flavored milk. Is it milk?
It is. It's called Nourishment. Do you not remember back in the 80s, every single bodybuilder was on Nourishment?
Is it like a cream? Is it what's that? Is it not Emily cream? Was it condensed cream? Is it like a condensed cream?
It is like condensed milk. It's a milkshake in a can that's been condensed. And yeah, back in the day, all the bodybuilders were on it. I rarely see it anymore, but I popped into a different local shop on the way home. I saw it on the shelf and I thought, you know what? Completely different from what we usually have on the show. Probably the first time in about 2 months I'm having a tinny on here. But I thought, why not, Alan?
First of all, when you said I popped in, I thought you was going to say I popped in DeLorean, went back to the 1980s and got another one.
No, if I had that ability, I would find out what the numbers are for the Euro Millions, which is happening, well, in a few hours after you listen to this, if you happen to be listening on the day it comes out.
Yeah, we'll tell you the ones the day after. I watched Raiders of the Lost Ark, some of the very last one the other day, and that was about time travel, which was quite interesting. Going back to the times of the Spartans and the Romans and things like that.
Ah, you mean the show's called Raiders of the Lost Ark? I was thinking Indiana Jones. I was thinking, I can't remember the Spartan one.
Yeah, Indiana Jones. It wasn't the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Indiana Jones and the something or another, weren't it? Yeah. I always said Raiders of the Lost Ark. Me getting my words muddled up there.
So it was Indiana Jones.
Yes, it was Indiana Jones, yeah, and the latest one that's come out. But anyway, this shop you went into, have you checked the sell-by date of that Nourishment? Because that could still be from the 1980s.
It may be, and I've opened it now, and I think the date's on the bottom, probably quite deliberately, so that you don't look at it, because if you look at it, you'll spill it. Although I will tell you something really confusing about this shop.
Go on.
I'm breaking fourth wall a little bit, but I went there about 7 p.m.
Okay.
And I saw that it was open. It had its windows open. I went to grab the handle, pushed, didn't open. So I thought, oh, it must be closed. Walked away. I hear a click. So I walked back and tried the handle, and it was open. And then when I got in, it locked behind me.
Oh, this is worrying.
Yeah, I've never been in a shop like that. And for those who have some idea where I live, I don't live in a crime capital. It's a relatively nice place to live. So, yeah, I didn't know what to think about that.
We're going to have them in Barnes soon because I do live in the crime capital of the UK.
But I will say, it did encourage me to buy something.
Yeah, because can you imagine you're not buying nothing, they're going to let you out until you've actually purchased something.
And I think it was cash only. So maybe I was in the 80s. I'll have to go and check.
There's a lot of places doing cash only now, isn't there? I've been away this last weekend, as you know, and they were doing cash only in so many places on in the North Yorkshire Moors and that. A lot of small shops say no cards, cash only.
It happens like that, doesn't it? That when a movement starts, you soon get a counter movement. So there's been a lot of going digital, transfer money, pay on your phone. And you always get a pushback.
Mm.
What is it about every action has an opposite reaction?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, you're quite right. So someone
And I,
pushes, you push back.
and I think that's what's happening in terms of cash only, which honestly, it's each shop owner to however they want to run their shop. If they want to just have cash only and no cards, that's fine. But if I don't have any cash, I won't be buying anything in your shop. Similarly, if you're card only and I happen to be an idiot who forgot his wallet, because I'll remember I pay with a card. I
Yep.
rarely, if ever, pay on my phone. We've established this. Then again, I may not be able to frequent your shop. So why not just have both options?
Yeah, I've started carrying a £10 note with me purely because I'm seeing it's the revolution's coming back as cash only, and I get it. But in the same sentence, I am always worried that shops, and not all shops do this, so don't people ring in and tell me I'm wrong. But some shops have cash and they don't put it through the till, it goes in a little drawer underneath, and the taxman never sees it. And if the taxman never sees it, then us as a nation don't make revenue, and our taxes go up as personal people.
No, that makes sense. Oh, I've got a query for you, Alan.
Go on.
Have you started just keeping hold of your £5 notes?
No, I haven't. No.
I have, and I'll explain why.
Go on.
Because every so often, maybe once a month or so, me and the intern will go out for a meal out, effectively a date night.
Yep.
And in the olden times, what you'd do is you'd put your cash down, it'd bring you your change, and you'd probably leave change on the table. You might add a little bit to it.
Yep. Yep.
Now with cards, if they don't put a service charge on, the number of times I've been there thinking, I feel bad, I can't leave a tip.
Oh, right. Okay.
So now when I break a tenner or 20, the £5 I'll just throw in my wallet. I'm probably going to get mugged for saying this, but I've got a special compartment in my wallet where I can just put some fivers, and that way I should always have money to leave a tip.
Oh, I like that. I like that. You're right. I'm like that as well. I tend not to leave tips in restaurants on my card because I'm worried that I only ever leave tip for a waitress or a waiter if I've had good service. Yeah, if I've had good service or good food, I will leave a tip. I know it gets shared between all the staff, so I know if I get to the waitress, it's or the waitress is going to go to the kitchen staff as well. But I'm loath to put it on a card because I know that card goes to the people who own the pub, and are they likely to actually share it? I don't know, and I'm like, yeah, the anti-establishment feeling.
No, completely. I know a lot of them say 100% of our tips go to the service staff, but you don't know for sure how it's going to have service staff. So you don't know whether they're using it to pay stuff that they usually pay for. Like maybe it gets used for a Christmas party. You just
Yeah,
don't know, do you?
or they'll get taxed on it. If you get paid money into your wages, and the shop or the restaurant's got to do that, you're going to get taxed on it. So I'd sooner give them a fiver, so no tax on it.
I love how we go from I don't want to pay cash in the shops because we might be ripping off the tax man to I'll give cash to waiters and waitresses and make sure it's cash free, tax free.
Anti-establishment, mate. Anti-establishment.
Right.
I'm all for the worker. I'm all for the work.
Okay, before we completely go off topic and get done for, I almost did a Malpurism then, but before we go completely off topic, Alan, what are you drinking?
Well, my beautiful Paula has just brought me a cup of Earl Grey. So I am teetotal at this moment in time, Ian. So I'm completely off the beer. I'm drinking alcohol free, but I just fancied an Earl Grey today. So yeah, I've got an Earl Grey in my nice white china mug.
It's cool. Is it one sugar, two sugar?
Half a sugar. So I have milk and half a sugar.
How much milk? Because that is something that gets debated for tea.
Not a lot. So I like my tea hot, and putting milk in always cools it down. And because I do like it in a china cup as well, I think it cools down quicker. Don't know why I like it in a china cup. It just tastes better for some reason. Maybe it's me thinking I'm posher than what I actually am because I've never been posh in my life. So drinking from a china cup makes me think. And I put my finger out as well. I'm going to put my finger out every time I have a drink of it. My little pinky.
Again, like the spirit fingers, that's just for my benefit, I guess.
Yeah.
Although, Alan, before we move on to the rest of the show, you mentioning tea, I saw something on Facebook today that made me think.
Wow, something on Facebook made you think that's a bigger shock than anything else you can tell me now.
I don't know if your Facebook feed's like this, but Facebook apparently needs money, so it's putting lots of sponsored posts, and a lot of them are memes or people's tweets that have been photoshopped in. Yes,
Yes, yes, all the time.
but I saw this. Someone wrote, "I've absolutely no respect for anyone who calls their dinner tea."
No, dinner is tea.
Well, I was confused by this, Alan, but like I said, it made me think, what savages are having tea at 12 noon?
Well, yeah, they're not. That's dinner. That is dinner, isn't it? 12 noon is
Exactly.
dinner. Yeah,
Yeah. And then
and
you got
then
tea after it.
yeah, and then you got tea in the evening.
And then supper if you're still hungry.
Supper after anything after 9 o'clock is supper.
Exactly. Exactly, listener. So yeah, for once, something on Facebook made me think, but it really confused me.
Yeah. Paula calls tea dinner, and she has dinner for lunch. And yeah, no, I need to explain to her. I've tried to explain to her, but it's doesn't work.
Paula's not native of Yorkshire, is she?
No, she's not. She's not a
Okay.
native northerner at all.
Just checking.
That is the
Right.
difference.
Right, Alan. Where are we going to on the notes?
Let's go through your listing because I love this very first note that you've put up there. £200.
Yeah. According to the pub,
Yeah.
you're going to be unlikely to get a £200 caravan. That's according to Leonsky. Although he is based down south, as in right down south on the coast, and maybe caravans are just more expensive down there.
I have seen three this week. 250, 1300 and 1325. So maybe I haven't seen the £200 one yet. All three were adequate for my circumstances. Maybe needed a clean, but all adequate for my circumstances. So I guess watch this space. Not in a rush for it. I'm planning on waiting until the end of the season and seeing what's available there because we are currently in caravanning season or coming just to the end of it. So I am waiting to see. But yeah, watch this space, Leonsky. I will get my caravan.
Right, and with that challenge thrown down, Alan, what's next?
Curse of the commentator. Last week we were talking about World Obstacle and not putting links up for all the races at the World Champs. And yeah, thanks, Dawn, for proving that we're there.
Yeah, this was again on the pub, Dawn Jollies. Listen to the show, and there was a slight lag last week between recording and then putting the show up. Because as you know, we're recording this live as you're listening to it on a Friday morning. But last week, because of time difference with Matt, we pre-recorded it a bit. And when we recorded, the results weren't there. And by the time it came out, as Dawn Jollies pointed out, they were absolutely there. So apologies, Dawn. Apologies, World Obstacle.
Yes, they're there now. All the results are there. If anyone wants to see them, just go on to FISO World Obstacle. Let's talk a little about what's happened this last week, though, after we recorded last week. So we have got Sea to Summit happened last week, which was the race all the way up on Ben Nevis in Scotland, where B tried to get up to the other week and had a malfunction. And great news, Ian, because one of our podcast colleagues, Mark Dixon, won it.
He absolutely did. Well done to Mark for. I honestly, I can't get my head around this race. I'm struggling to just think of running up Ben Nevis.
I'm back down.
I'm back down.
It's crazy. I mean, I was due to go to it. I couldn't find accommodation, which brings me to my next point. Did you actually see what happened to Mark on the night he booked to go up there?
I missed that. What happened to Mark?
So he booked his hotel room. Friday night, he's in his hotel, and there's a knock on the door at 11 o'clock, informing him that he hadn't booked that room. He'd actually booked 2025 and not 2024, and the guests that were stopping in that room had turned up to have their room. So they threw him out. He had to sleep in his car.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, God. But Why did they give him the keys?
I don't know. Maybe he had the date, and he's probably booked the date. If you go to a hotel and you've got a date that says, let's say the 8th of September, and you go to the hotel and your date is 8th of September, how likely are they going to click on if it's not a really big one, with all computerized stuff? How are they going to look that close that you've got a room booked? I don't know.
Maybe they were just thinking, well, if the other person doesn't turn up, at least we've had our money.
Valid point, mate. But well done to Mark on winning that great event. I haven't seen all the results, so I'm not going to throw them all, but I just follow Mark on social media and that. But one of our other hosts, Will Chung, went and did an ultra this week as well in my neck of the woods. He did peak run. I think it was Peak Runners Ultra, 33 miles.
We did. I've got more thoughts on that. But before we move on from Sea to Summit, can we just give a quick shout out to Yvonne Lee, who also took it on? She absolutely crushed it doing Sea to Summit. We don't talk about Yvonne a lot on the show, but she's an accomplished runner, isn't she?
Oh, very much so. Yeah, very much so. I think I did the Manvey Mountain down at what used to be Snowdon with her last year. And yeah, she's a very accomplished runner. So a big well done. It was strange that I think there was a big group from Solo Mudders going to go up, weren't there? But then people started to pull out and change their minds.
Yeah, well, people like you couldn't get hotel rooms and that, but Craig Turner managed to get up there as well. And there's a great picture of him on his socials holding a "You've smashed it." I believe the top of Ben Nevis. I've never been up, as we discussed a couple of weeks ago. I got as far as the pub.
Yeah. Is that the pub that's on the top? They've got a pub on top of Ben Nevis.
I don't believe so, but they have a lovely one right at the base with haggis, and that's as far as my knowledge goes of that. But yeah, moving back to what you were saying about Will and Vinny, absolutely smashing a 33-mile ultra near you.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Quick talk about ultras, because this race that Will and Vinny did, Rob was going to do it. Okay, and Rob pulled out 3 weeks before through injury, and he paid the 100 miles. So he paid for the 100 mile. How much do you reckon it cost him for the 100 mile event?
Oh, 70, 80?
£175.
Ouch.
He pulled out 3 weeks to go. What do you think Peak Runners gave him in return for pulling out? Do you think they deferred his ticket, gave him a partial refund? What do you think they gave him?
Party handshake?
Yes, mate, exactly. Absolutely nothing whatsoever. They have flatly refused to even speak to him after the first email. They sent an email to him saying, sorry, but please read terms and conditions. You've cancelled within a month of the event. We're not obliged to give you any deferrals as per our terms and conditions. Fully agree that. But I think it's really poor customer service. He wasn't even asking, he was asking for a deferral. But then on the back of it, he paid extra for parking, T-shirt, and the belt buckle. The belt buckle wasn't included. You got a medal, but he paid extra for all of those things, and nothing's happened. They're just like keeping everything. They paid extra for them. So it's not quite delivering what they're meant to do. So I've done a little bit of snooping, right? So I'm not going to knock back them race, but I've done a little bit of snooping for ultra runs. And do you know you can get an ultra run for only 20 quid, Ian?
Only 20 quid?
Yeah. So not an 100 miler. So this is a 33 miler. And I'm going to invite all of our listeners if they want to go and do it. I've done it in our pub. I've mentioned our pub. It's in Derby. It's on, I think, the 26th of January. And I'll put the link in the description of this podcast if anyone wants to go and do it. It's 33 miles. It's in aid of the Scouts. And it's all around Derby. It's all off-road. I think it's about 85% off-road. Trails, parks, canal towpaths, and everything else. But 20 quid for an ultra run, and it's got 5 checkpoints. You're not going to get a better deal than this.
You're not. And what a shame, Alan. I'm already double booked.
I knew you were going to say that, because it's the same weekend as being released for Hyrox, I'm going to say.
Rocks Manchester, which we'll come to later on. But yeah, sadly, I've used my volunteer code. I'm busy that weekend. That is such a shame.
Oh,
What a massive
Ian,
shame. Oh well,
Ian, I wanted you there.
no one else did.
No one else did. No one else did.
Can I go back to the discussion of Will and Vinny? Because
Yes,
as you know, Will is my best friend. I also feel bad, one, because he'll listen to this,
I'm
and
not your best
two,
friend. Oh, well, where do I
I
fit in
said
that?
what I may misspoke. As you know, Will is one of my best friends.
All right, okay.
Okay. And it's not a competition, but
Yeah.
so
But
I feel a little bit bad about what I'm going to go into next because one, he doesn't have an immediate point of reply, and two, he's so lovable that I'm struggling to criticize him a little bit.
okay, go on. Oh, you're going to criticise Will now. Listen here, folks. You've heard this here first. Will, one of his best friends, Ian's going to criticise.
Will is a staunch anti-marathoner. He's always said he's never, ever, ever going to do a marathon.
Yeah,
Something he doesn't want to do. He won't enter London, even though you've more chance of winning Euro Millions as you have getting into London Marathon. He won't entertain the idea of doing Chester or Manchester or anything like that. Yet he runs an ultra. So, Alan, I've never run an ultra. You have, and you've run marathons. What is the difference that means Will is happy to run more than a marathon, but that 26.2 he doesn't want to do?
for me, I've only ever run one marathon. It was a purely trail marathon. I wouldn't want to run a marathon up road. I do enter the London Marathon only because I want to just see if I want to go and do it. It's one of them races I think you want to do. It's a bucket list event to me. So if I don't ever do it, I'll not be that gutted, but I would like to do it. For me, I prefer to run ultras too because you're setting yourself a physical challenge. Don't get me wrong, a marathon's a physical challenge to a lot of people, but it's the whole idea of going further than a marathon, you know. And I was talking about this in one of my runs over the last couple of months with Jamie and Rob. And when we first started running together 9 years ago, we would do a 10K run, and that was our long run. A 10K run was our long run, 6 miles. If you were lucky, you might see us do maybe a 7 or an 8 mile once every month, but that was it. We weren't going no further than that. And now when we go for a run, if we're not running 8 miles, it's a short run, and 8 miles is a short run. And it's weird how, as a runner, and I do class myself a little bit as a runner now, that you go further and further and further and further and further to push yourself just that little bit more. And I think that's what happens a little bit in OCR and other events. Yeah, people who are really good at 3Ks and 100 meters, they're probably going to stop there. You know what I mean? It's highly unlikely they're going to go into ultra distance. But someone who's doing traditional OCRs, 5 miles to like the 15-mile mark, they're potentially going to go into ultra running, into endurance league. And then they might even go further afield. They might want to go and do an 100-miler. They want to try and see how much they push themselves. I think it's a natural evolution. And then what happens as you get older, then you start to pull it back a little bit as well. I have seen like the people getting to 60 and go, okay, and I'm like this as well. I'm now I've crossed that border and I'm closer to 60 than 50. I'm like thinking, I need to start pulling it back at some point and moving back to 10Ks. Yeah, I think ultra running I think once he's done one, it won't surprise me now. And I know Will's done Infinity Series. So I know he's done Infinity Series, but it won't surprise me now if he does more trail ultras.
That makes sense. So it's what you're trying to tell me is it's almost a different kind of running style. So ignore the distance and think about it as a marathon is one type of race, and ultra, yeah, it's longer than a marathon, but it's just a completely different style.
Completely different. You're allowed to walk in an ultra. Straight away, you can walk. And I've read a blog, and I'm going to come to this blog in a minute, but I read a blog from a guy recently, and he turned around and he said, I left the car park and within 100 meters I was walking. That is an ultra. In an ultra, you are not going to run. Very few people run the full distance. Your top athletes will and things like that. But for an everyday runner like myself and potentially Will and Vinny and that, we are going to walk at some point. we're not going to run for the full 50K. It's just natural.
I walked a marathon, but I don't think I was meant to.
Yeah, but that's the thing. You're doing a marathon, you're not expected to walk. You're expected to run for 26 miles.
Yeah, and I was miserable at the end of both my marathon. I was glad I did them, but man, I was miserable at the end of both. Whereas looking at Will's pictures, him and Vinny had a whale of a time.
You do. Seriously, in an ultra run, the moment you put that rucksack on, it's a big sign saying, I'm an ultra runner. I'm allowed to walk. That's it. And you can walk as much as you like and run as much as you like.
I would say you've kind of convinced me that Will isn't being hypocritical. It is just a different race style and that. And Will, if we've got it completely wrong, of course you know how to find us, and you're welcome to come on next week to argue your case. But if you think that Alan has sufficiently provided the correct defence, then yeah, happy to leave it there. But no, it just puzzled me somewhat. And yes, listener, I know he's a good friend. I could have just picked up the phone and asked him the question, but I was curious what Alan thought.
Yeah. No, I think it's a fair question, and I do think it's a fair question. And anyone who's done ultra running, I'd be interested to see what other people think. But that's my thought. So yeah. Can we well talking ultra runners? Quickly touch this other part. A lot of people will remember Matt Evans, or Smevs, as people call him, from the Elements race. Used to be the race out to the Elements race. He's moved into ultra running. So I'm going to go quick to this subject. He ran the Welsh Three Peaks of the day, 131.5 miles, 3 mountains, 21,600 feet of climbing. And he did the FKT of 36 hours and 47 minutes. So well done, Mr. Evans.
Wow, that's just unbelievable. Do you think he what?
He actually, this is what I was talking about. He refused to let Mrs. Evans film him leaving the car park because within less than 100 meters he was walking. Yes, as he left Clanberry's car park. So yes, he does talk about it in there in his blog. It's quite a good blog. If I remember, I'll put it in the description of the podcast. If not, I might share it on our socials. But it's quite a good blog. So anyone who's interested in ultra running, and I've got 10-15 minutes spare. It's quite a good blog, well written.
It is, and well done, walking and getting an FKT.
Yes, yeah. I'm going to give us a little bit of and I will use profanity, a bit of a shit sandwich on this podcast here. Okay. So we've had some good bits, yeah, and we're going to get a little bit of bad bits before we go back to some good bits. But this week, I'm going to say I want to wish Jack Carpenter all the best in the future. If no one knows Jack, on Tuesday, and this is common knowledge now, he's started an Instagram page up. Jack has been diagnosed with a brain tumour. He's actually got 3 brain tumours, and they are, as far as I'm aware, the cancerous, although he's not had the test done and the samples taken yet. That's going to come. But my thoughts are with you, Jack. 36-year-old, wow. I wish you all the best going forward. If we can do anything to help you, just reach out. I know you listen to the podcast and that, and I just wish you all the best. Instagram page, I think it's J Crushing Cancer. He started a new Instagram page up, and he's going to blog his life on there. I followed it. I think it's worth following. If anyone knows Jack, and I know that he's such a great coach, and a lot of the people who he coaches will be gutted at this news, and that. So my thoughts go out to you guys as well. Anyone who's involved with him, who's been affected by this. I really don't know what to say. I watched the video of it on his first videos. He was telling people, and it had me in tears. On his Instagram page, I was blown away.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend like me and Jack are great friends, but we do know each other from the circles that we run in. But I am good friends with a lot of his good friends, and I just imagine it's devastating. And Jack has always been kind to us. He's been on the show. He's been in the pub a couple of times. He had a podcast, Multi Sports Media, which he did with Ben, I believe.
Yeah.
Back in the day, they featured quite heavily on some of our early work because as a team they did ETM together back in the early days. Alan, do you remember those days? And I'll see him at High Rocks, I'll see him at events. He's always been a great person, larger than life personality as well. It's impossible to speak to him and come away feeling glum. You could feel like you're at your absolute lowest, and he'll perk you up just because of the way he talks, his mannerisms, and that's a rare gift to have.
Without a doubt, has been there for so many people. Yeah, I don't know what to say. Just get all the best,
He
Jack.
he needs our support. I have no clue whether he's religious or whether listeners are religious. So keep him in your prayers. If you pray, keep him in your thoughts. If you don't, follow that Instagram. And if there is any kind of fundraising or anything like that, any way to make the next, however long, as he hopefully kicks this thing's backside, more manageable for him and his young family, because he's got a young family as well, then yeah,
Two daughters,
please
three and
just
one. 3 and
yeah,
1. Yeah.
yeah. And you can't even explain it to them at the moment. I can't imagine. I was saying this to a friend recently. I cannot relate. I can empathize, I can sympathize, but I cannot relate to that.
No, no, neither can I. Like I said, I watched his story, his video. I was in tears, and yeah, let's move on before we break into tears.
Absolutely. And before I swear,
Yeah,
because I almost did, because I hate cancer.
yeah.
Cancer's an absolute bitch.
Let's look at something. We've got something to look forward to, which is this weekend. We have got the Nuts 3K series, the British champs, the 3K British champs down at Nuts this week. Over 70 people taking part in it
The 3K champs.
in the 3K champs. So, bear in mind, this has only just literally been announced 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think. So really short lead up to it. I think about a month lead up to it, and we're at the end of the season. We've just had Body Up last week. That's took so much out of people, and we've got 70 people taking on the 3K elite races this weekend. That's brilliant.
That really is. And it's just showing the hard work that all British Obstacle are doing, and Nuts as well, for their promotion of it, and for Nuts being willing to take a chance to put on that event. So well done to Nuts. Well done to all the athletes. It'd be nice if we get a few more than 70, but I'm sure everyone's going to have fun because we know how good that Nuts course is for a short format.
Too right. Too right. Talking about Boss, did you see the save the date this weekend?
I am going to confess I missed it.
So there's a post out, a bit of a teaser from British Obstacle Sports. Save the date. So, 7th and 8th of December is the date they're asking you to save. I've been thinking, what's going to happen 7th and 8th of December? We're talking about winter OCR. We're not going to have a winter OCR. Got to be something, inside, or, a venue that's not going to be super duper. So I've been having a look around. And that date coincides with something else that's happening on that date that is inside at the NEC.
Oh, the caravan show.
No, but it could have been the caravan show. It's Fit Fest, which was on our list a couple of weeks ago, but we were too busy talking about other stuff. Never came up. Fit Fest, 7th and 8th of December at the NEC. And British Obstacle Sports are saying save the date. Do we think there could be something going off there?
Oh, now if only the person in charge of Fit Fest, who also runs AFEX, as we know, if only he'd been talking to me last year at Fit Fest and mentioning trying to get a short course OCR at Fit Fest. If only that had happened, Alan. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it happened. Not saying it didn't happen, though.
I remember that conversation, and that's what we're coming back. And I didn't know if you would remember it. So, yeah, maybe. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe we are speculating, but save the date, people. You never know. You never know. Interesting, though.
It is. Can I just say, irrespective of whether it's connected at all, if whatever British Obstacle announce isn't to your fancy, or you're not available at whatever venue it's at, but you are near Fit Fest, definitely check it out. Me and the intern had an absolute blast last year. You've got an affects competition, you've got a strength in depth competition, which is like a CrossFit. You've got the indoor rowing champs there. You've also got a powerlifting competition. Alan, have you ever watched a powerlifting competition live?
No, I haven't. Only on TV.
Live, it is incredible. Just the atmosphere, it's completely unbelievable. So I think it was Steve HFD who mentioned FitFest and reminded us of FitFest. So shout out to Steve for that. So absolutely, if you can go to FitFest, go. And who knows, maybe there might be something there for you to do too.
Might be something very true. Do we have complimentary tickets?
I have no clue. We probably should look into that.
Yes, let's look into that. Um, Beast race commentary is our next note.
It is. How did it get on? Because unfortunately, I've not had time to go back and listen. This past week was the Hybrid Fitness Summit, and I've been trying to catch up with all of those before they disappear. Quick shout out, go back and listen to them because, unlike podcasts, they won't be around forever. So make sure you do. And once I'm done that, I'm going to go back and listen to Beast. How did you find it?
Um, it was different to Spartan in some ways, but it was really good, Ian. I think me and Will got it right again. We had a couple of little technical glitches, so we wasn't sure on the race time start, so we had to fetch it forward early. It started at 9. We thought it would start at 10. Full enough, so did Finlay, because Finlay didn't rock up until after the first wave had gone, but he managed to get onto the second wave because he thought it was a 10 o'clock start too. So we weren't the only one, but it was quite interesting that they had to go through a ditch before to get to the start, and we was expecting a little bit of prelude to it, and they was off. So it was like very interesting. It wasn't the easiest thing to commentate on, I want to say, because there were some quiet spots where they ran out and then they came back. But well done to both Ross and Claire, who filmed for us. They got us so much footage. They jumped on at the right time to talk to us. It was really, really good. Unfortunately, we couldn't hang around for the females, which was an hour and a half later. But I do know Ross filmed it and put it onto UKOSR Facebook page for us. So big thanks to Ross for that. But what an amazing race, Ian. And the commentator's curse happened again because we were talking, me and Will, on there, and Russell was winning clearly. And I just happened to say, this is a time now where if Russell doesn't still give 100% and push and decides to relax a little bit, it could make a mistake. And then the next thing he fell off the rig, low rig, which it's bread and butter for Russell. And then he made another mistake, so he ended up running 2 penalties. And while he was doing the penalties, Ramonas Wickers, who had a clean race, overtook him while he was in the penalty pit and won the race for the men. It was a great race. Dan Tip come in third, for Shipley fourth. It was a great race to watch, and the feedback of it has been brilliant.
The race or the coverage?
The race, not the coverage. That was just me and Will. Everyone said Claire was good again, and Ross. It was just me and Will.
I really wish we had a bigger budget and then we could just send Claire off to these far-flung places and go international.
It would be amazing if we had a big budget and we could send Claire, because she is a great cinematographer, I want to say, call cinematographer, and she's a great commentator. How she does it together, and she's so good. She gets the right pictures, and Ross, first time for Ross, and he did a great job for us as well. So big shout out to them, to both of them, for it. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have got the film, and then we couldn't have commentated. But it worked. It's out there on our YouTube channel. Click on live, and it's there from last weekend if anyone wants to watch it. About 40 minutes long, so not too long. But it was a great race. I'm not going to spoil who's hot, but I want to give a quick shout out to some of the other finishers as well, Ian, if you don't mind. So in the females, it was Charlotte Haney won it, Tamar Barkley second, Laura Hayward third. I'm just going to give you the winners as well as the age group. So the male age groups first. 10 to 12, Harry Jeffrey. 13 to 14, Alex Cook. 15 to 19, Dan Warren. 30 to 39, James Marigold. 40 to 40, Simon Briggs. 50 plus, Andrew Durrance. Females, 10 to 12, Sophie Jeffrey. 30-39s, Gemma Addy, 40-49s, Jenny Tutor, and 50+ Sarah Dutton. Full results
Well
on their
done.
Facebook page.
Well done to everyone who took part. Like you say, it got rave reviews, and hopefully we'll see much more of this slightly longer form beast race. It's kind of funny that, isn't it? Most races we talk about them putting on a short form.
Yeah.
For Daryl, it's putting on a long form.
It was so good. I mean, you had to be fast at the running. This was a 100% race. This you couldn't hold back at this. There was no saving anything, and I mean, Russell got a great lead, but it just went because he got the penalties. I still came second. He had that good a lead, but I want to say he was 150 meters at one point in front of Ramonas, and Ramonas just hit the obstacles and it was a beast on them. I think on one of the obstacles, I want to say Chris was in second with Dan in third and Ramonas in fourth at the the Spartan Atlas walls where you go across side, but you traverse it. And we only saw Chris on one side, and then the other side was Dan and Ramonas, and they both overtook Chris on that obstacle. And then literally Ramonas just powered past Dan on the next rig. Phenomenal. But when everyone was resting, he wasn't. He was just constantly going, just to show how much upper body strength he's got and an obstacle proficiency he shows. So great. It was a great race. Really good race.
I would definitely try and catch the replay, Alan. Thank you and Will for doing that. I wouldn't say it was the cursive commentator. I think it was expert analysis. The cursive commentator tends to be when you say something like, "Oh, there's only one person who's going to win this now, and that's Russell," and then he falls.
Well, I think I just said that there's only one person who's going to win this now, unless he starts to take it easy. So yeah, I mean, quite often I've raced before, not to their standards, but I've raced to a decent standard. So I know what goes a little bit through their head, and yeah, you could see Russell was he was trying to protect his lead, and I think trying to protect it, he just took a little bit of eye off the game, and but he also had a. I don't want to spoil who's up because who's up will be covering this weekend, but he also had a little bit of a mix-up with one of the technical officials early on, where they called a penalty on him and he didn't actually have a penalty. And he wasted 10-15 seconds arguing with them before the head official went, no penalty. So, yeah.
Gosh, about 10-15 seconds is a penalty in and of itself. It's one of them. But at the end of the day, and I'm keen to stress this, the referee will call it based on what they see in that space. The head judge obviously had a different angle and decided it wasn't a penalty.
Yeah, exactly. The biggest winner of the weekend, though, for me, were Darrell's and Bodyhood Jim. Absolutely put on a top quality race.
So what you're saying is that when we promote a race on the Swift Half, people should stand up, take note, and book a ticket.
Without a doubt, whenever they launch it, you need to go and do it. Everyone needs to go and do that race, without a doubt.
No, absolutely. Moving on from the Beast, let's talk a little bit about what's happening this weekend outside of the UK. It's kind of crept up on, well, me at least, but it's Spartan Euros in Austria.
Wow. I didn't even know that. Talk about creeping up on us. It's well and truly crept up on us. Wow.
It has. So it's this coming week. I do not have a start list, but I know amongst others, we've got Matt Roberts, who's been on the show a few times. He's going out there as a prelude to him taking on Killington in the USA. So good luck to Matt. Good luck to all the UK racers. Apologies, but we didn't do our research correctly to get any kind of list here. I know there's a couple more people who are thinking about going who I hope they go, but I'm not going to name them to put any more pressure on them. And they'll know who I mean. If that makes any sense, Alan?
Without a doubt it does, yes. Yes.
Right. So I'm sorry for being cryptic there, listener, but yeah, sometimes we have to be. Right, Alan, what else is on the notes?
So we have got something happening. Let's talk about the weekend of fitness that's going to be happening on the 14th of September.
Yeah, this was interesting to me, and it was something I only realized when I was just looking at the calendar. But on the 14th of September, we've got three events happening. You've got the Decafit in Forders, which we've talked about.
Yeah.
You've got the Deadly Dozen, which is up in Macclesfield, which again we talked about on the show. And you also have the JK Games. They're not all the same. The JK Games is more of a functional fitness type competition as opposed to a race. And it did strike me as this may be one of the first big clashes. Like in OCR, we're used to having clashes all the time.
Yeah.
But with fitness racing being so new, often there'll be a week or so between the events. And I can't recall any time where there's three races which are supported by the fitness racing community all happening on the same weekend. Is this a sign of things to come?
I think it is because I wasn't even a I can't remember a time when we had three races. I know we've had two in the past, haven't we? We've had like sort of a High Rocks and something else going off, or a couple of smaller ones, but three big races. And we're talking about two of them are quite big anyway. Decafit, which has just come out on the Fitness Racing podcast because you've done a preview of that, and Deadly Dozen, which we know is coming on leaps and bounds every event.
Yeah, and JJK if games, I almost called
Yeah.
it event there. Apologies to JJK. That may not be as well known, but that actually has more legacy than the other two. So that's
Yeah.
like a legacy event that's been going on. I want to say for a few years. It's definitely been going on longer than Decafit in the UK and Deadly Dozen. So it's just amazing. And I know our good friends over at Team My Zone, they're trying to support at least Decafit and JJK games, and no doubt there'll probably be My Zone athletes at Deadly Dozen who are there as well. It's quite remarkable, Alan.
Wow. Wow. Is there anyone else going to any of them that we know of?
Yeah, a certain guest who was on the show last week, Matt B. Davis, is going to fly in to go to Deadly Dozen.
So he's just flying in for the one event and then flying back again.
It's a weekend. So where you and me would go to like Yorkshire, or in your case, more Yorkshire,
Yeah.
he's coming over to, well, Macclesfield.
Wow. Wow. That adds a whole new dimension to let's go to a race for the weekend.
It does, and I know it's not without its precedence because I believe a few members of the Tough Mudder crew recently went and did Toughest over in the States, but I still think it's a massive commitment to come over. But hopefully, I will be able to see Matt when he's on his travels because, of course, Macclesfield's not a million miles from me. Typically, thanks to a clash, I had pre-agreed to go to Decca.
Yes. What is Decker on the Saturday or the Sunday?
Decca is on the Saturday. Well, I hope it's on the Saturday because I'm busy for Sunday. But yeah, Decca is on the Saturday, and Deadly Dozen is also on the Saturday.
Doesn't do over 2 days sometimes? Or is that just me just
Not,
thinking of something else?
not yet. I think they're looking at that next year.
Oh, okay. Okay. Cool. Excellent. Excellent. I mean, good luck at Decker yourself, Ian. I know you're going to go down and go and have a go, you and Jen and that, and so good luck down there. And good luck. Is Matt taking part, or is he just flying in for a bit of commentary?
He might be flying out primarily to get content, but you never know. Once you're there and he sees it, maybe he takes part, maybe he doesn't. But if you are at Deadly Dozen, be sure to go and say hi to Matt. He a good friend of the show, as we've talked about. And if you've never met Matt, you're in for a treat.
Definitely in for a treat. Definitely in for a treat. Couple more notes on there, Ian, before we go. Bushy Park Run that you've put on.
Yes, I was not aware of this until after the event, but it was Bushy Park Run's 1,000th ever park run. For those of you who are park run enthusiasts, Bushy is the original park run. So it is mental that one of them has now hit 1,000 races. And I'm sure someone will tell me how many years that is, but it's an incredible number of years.
19 years. I just worked it out.
19 years, although you've got to account for the occasional double as well sometimes. So they could have had 54 races on, but I don't think that makes much difference. It'll be sometime between 19 and 18. But Alan, can you tell us the number of participants?
Well, I couldn't. I would have guessed at something. I'll tell you what I would have guessed at. I would have guessed at 3,000. But I know you've put the number on the notes. And this is absolutely phenomenal. 6,204 finishers.
Just can't imagine that many people being in a public park.
And I can't. I mean, the start line. I mean, I've been to Bushy Park. The start line for 6,000 runners. That's massive. That's huge. And how would they have the numbers that you have on, your finishing tickets? Barnsley has 500 on theirs. 6,000. End of the day, who's going to sort out 6,000 numbers? Someone's going to sort out 6,000 numbers and put them back in order before the next Saturday.
I wonder how many they actually have and how many they had to just say, right, we need your number here. Just start taking it via pen and paper. I wonder when they ran out of tokens, because I fail to believe that they had 6,000 tokens lying around.
That's crazy. I wonder what's the highest. That's got to be the highest ever attendance at any park run.
It absolutely has. I think it's got more finishes there than my local park run has over a year. Yeah,
I'm gonna have a look.
I'm relatively convinced, but servicing those 6,000 finishers, though, 134 volleys. A race would kill for that many volunteers.
Oh, without a doubt. Prior to this one, the highest ever attendance was at Bushy Park again, and it had 2,545. So, I mean, they've over doubled that.
Must have favoured all tough guys. When you all went together.
Oh, yeah. I've got to say when I did my first Tough Guy, I'm sure there was about 5,000 runners there. And I mean, that was phenomenal. You know what? One of the most phenomenal parts about that at Tough Guy was my first ever event. I was in, and I use profanity again twice in this show. It was the Dickhead Squad. So you had different squads, and basically we was in about the fourth or the fifth group back, and you were put in big pens made out of Harris fencing. And so the front went, and then someone else, and someone else, and someone else, and they finally let us through. And when you got to the slaloms, it was the greatest sight I have ever seen of literally 4,000 or 5,000 people just lying, going up and down like a snake up this huge hill. And you could see it from about half a mile away as you was running towards it, and you was thinking, oh my God, look at that. That's like, I look back now and I think that was an amazing sight, having that many runners. Imagine if Tough Guy had ever done it at night time. People with head torches going up and down that hill would have been absolute phenomenal. Phenomenal it was, but I mean, it would have been something a whole different thing. But yeah, 6,000 runners. I just can't imagine it, Ian. I just can't imagine it. The queues at the end to have you, pick your tokens up and chip in and that, it's like, it's just phenomenal.
I wonder how far back they would have had the funnel, the finishers funnel, or do you reckon they basically went back on themselves? So you got across the finish line and then you had to turn around to join the queue for the funnel, because that's the only way I could see it.
I did one in Huddersfield. I want to say it was Huddersfield once, and I think there was about 1,000 runners there, and that was the biggest one I'd ever done. And they had 5 or 6 funnels that you went down, and you went all the way around a bowling green. They had a bowling green, and you literally had 5 or 6 queues going around this bowling green, to hand your tokens in and that. I think that was the biggest one I'd ever done. So I would hate to think how big they were. They must have had 10, 20 funnels.
They absolutely must have. But could you imagine being unfortunate enough to be walking your dog at 8:45 across one of the paths?
That would have been absolutely crazy. Oh, I wonder who won it. Do you know who won it?
Oh, no one wins park run anymore.
Oh, right. No one wins a park run anymore. Yeah, they don't do the results anymore, do they?
They do results. Unfortunately, none of those volunteers actually fought to bring a stopwatch, so everyone got 59.59. I'm kidding. I'm absolutely kidding, but that would have been hilarious. But for 134 volunteers, Alan,
yeah,
do you reckon they gave them a free race?
Well done, folks. You've got a free race. Can you imagine being the tail runner? How far would you have had to have walked to get the tail? Because obviously you're going to be right at the back, aren't you? So you're at the back of 6,000 runners. That's like another mile. You've done another mile.
That is true. Did I ever tell you about when I volunteered as a tail runner or tail walker?
No.
It was during my marathon days, long, long gone in the past. And what I wanted to do that particular day is I wanted to do a long run to get to the park run. And then I was just going to do that as a nice, easy jog round. So it was part
Yeah.
of my long, slow run.
Yeah.
Okay. Of course, I must have turned up at the time when the slowest person was doing a 32-minute 5K because there was hardly anyone there.
Okay.
So trying to keep up with them was fun. When I'd already done, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 miles, the idea was I think I was aiming for a real long run. I think it was a 15-mile day. But
Yeah.
my idea was I was on a bit of a streak for park runs. So I thought, well, if I do tail walker, I can just take it easy doing that, get my volunteer credit, get my race credit, and then just run home.
I get that age. And then you have to run a 32-minute part run.
Yeah, I had to because you feel dead embarrassed if you don't keep up with them.
Mm, mm. I remember I've done quite a few tail walkers, and at Barnes it's a three loop course, and there's a guy there who turns up or used to turn up every week without fail, and he rocks and he walks. You know, he's in his 80s. He walks around. So I was having a general walk around with him. Found out it was a teacher, and it was quite open a teacher, being to see the Queen and things like that, and got awards and that. And we got lapped. We're doing one. We're doing one loop. Before we passed the start line to start the second loop, we got lapped by every runner there. You know, it took us 25 minutes to walk the first mile, and then he went, "That's it for me now. I've done." So now I've been lapped by everybody.
And you had to try and catch up.
And I'm like, but who do you catch up? Who do you catch up? Because it's a 3-lap course. So I was like, well, I don't know who I'm going to catch. I don't know who the last person is. So I literally went past everyone going, how many laps have you done? How many laps have you done? How many laps have you done? And I think I was on my 3rd lap before I actually caught the runner that was,
Oh, gosh. That's hilarious. So the lesson learned today, listener, is don't do tail walking or tail running thinking it's going to be an easy way to get a credit and a nice way to have I don't know, time out in the fresh air. It has a nasty habit of biting you.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
Right. Final bit of news is High Rocks this weekend has announced, I say this weekend, this past Monday, announced that Manchester is coming back to the shock of, well, pretty much no one. Let's be honest. If they also announced that it was on the last weekend in January to the shock of how many people?
Yeah, it's a shock of maybe near 0 people. Zero people shocked at that.
But the big shocker is they're having a second event, which is coming up in 10 weeks.
What a short lead up, Ian. 9th and 10th of November?
It is 9th, 10th of November for High Rocks Manchester 1 and then High Rocks Manchester 2 in its traditional position at the end of January. Firstly, well done to High Rocks for doing something. They're obviously subscribed for all their events, and releasing 2 events like this will, in theory, encourage most people to choose one or the other.
Or everyone who loves High Rocks to choose both.
Potentially, everyone to choose High Rocks will do both, but I don't know how the draw will work, whether they'll run it concurrently or whether they will, just run it. You could get lucky in both. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I just get an inkling that doing 2 events, it'll probably result in more people being happy than there was with the London ballot.
Completely agree. I think it's great news. I do think it's great news to start 2 events. Unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier, I can't make January this year now because I'm going to do this ultra run, which is part of my training for WTM. Otherwise, I would be at IROX in January. I'm now going to make a decision. Do I want to go in 10 weeks' time? The week before Escape from Meriden.
That's what I'm thinking. If I recall, I'm sure there was something that we were considering that very weekend. It might have been the drop. And you said you've got Meriden, but let's have a look. There is an alternative option, Alan.
Which is?
Have a look. What is the events on Hyrox on the 27th? Do the Ultra on the 26th, and then do Hyrox.
And then IROX on the 27th. I like that idea, Ian. No.
Well, potentially a relay.
Potentially. With my new energy food that I've now got. Well, it's not really energy food, it's more like wake up call. I reckon I could just run Hyrox just on my new shoes.
I think that could happen. Before we move on to that, just the little bit of information. The ballot for Hyrox is now open and has been since this past Wednesday. It will be running till, I believe, next Tuesday. Don't leave it to the last minute, but bear in mind it will be busy at times. So if you can't get on the ballot straight away, then check later on. There will be times when people aren't trying to get on. You'll easily be able to get a spot on the ballot. It doesn't matter when you go in the ballot. So don't panic if you go on and you can't get through that particular time. So, Alan, that being said, let's finish with you talking about your new energy chews.
So we have, I want to say we've teamed up in the short term at this moment in time with Caffeine Bullet because I'm going to test them over the next month. I mentioned this last week on the podcast. If anyone wants to test them with me, they have offered a 20% discount code, which is available to anyone who wants to test them. UK OCR is the code, and I'll put the link in the description to go to the shop to purchase them. I know anyone who's out there who wants to try them. I know people who do try them, so jump on it while you can. I tried them for the first time last night, Ian. It was only a little 9-mile run, and I was 8 miles into it, and I thought, right, now's the time to test one. I was flagging a little bit. I thought, what's it going to do to me? I'm not going to say it gave me more energy, or it didn't feel like it gave me more energy, but what it did, Ian, it woke me up. The caffeine hits quite quickly. So within a quarter of a mile, I felt like the caffeine had woken me up. Does that mean I got more energy? I don't know. Maybe it does, maybe not. I think it needs a longer run to give it a proper test. But I had the mint one. It tasted all right when I had it, but it gave me a little aftertaste afterwards. So I think you've got to drink with it as well. So I would suggest to anyone, if you don't like the taste of caffeine, because it is quite a strong taste of caffeine afterwards in your mouth. If you don't like the taste of caffeine, tastes like black coffee is what it tasted like a black coffee, like a strong espresso.
Yeah, that makes sense. And if you don't like mint, I think we've got other flavors. Well, I know we've got other flavors because I ordered a bunch of them for the intern who will also be testing them because there's an obvious handicap that I can't test these. But the intern is testing out their ginger raws version. And listener, in case you're wondering about hypocritical sponsorship, the fact that only half a show takes caffeine, don't worry, because as we understand it, Caffeine Bullet are developing something which is caffeine free.
That is what we're understanding, and we're hopefully going to test them as soon as they come out as well. So David Hellard, I think, is the CEO of Caffeine Bullet, which is, can't be a bad CEO if he's recommending them.
Exactly. Well, we know David Hellard. He's the inventor of Caffeine Bullet. He's Bad Boy running podcasts, and it's not a secret that they're developing an electrolyte chew because, well, it's on Caffeine Bullet's Instagram. So, so hopefully that'll come out and I get to join in the fun. But in the meantime, we get to see how Alan gets on with them and any of our listeners. So, as Alan said, click on the link. They're not that expensive either, are they?
No, I think if you buy the big bags, I think the big bags were about £40, but you gain £9 off. I think about £44, but you get nearly £9 off with a 20% discount. So it makes them, I think, a good price. For 80 chews were £45, if I remember rightly.
And I think I got 60 of the ginger raws for the intern. I want to say it only cost me 16 quid, and it comes with free shipping. And when you compare that to gels, because I know they're not the same as a gel, but they kind of do the same thing. say you take 2 for every time you go out, that's 30 races that you're getting, or 30 training runs, 16 quid.
Yeah, I've got to admit, I'm going to take one every run I do now, no matter what distance it is, and I'm going to take it when I'm about a mile to 2 miles because I want to make sure it's right for my stomach before I give them the ultimate test. So yeah, I've got some big runs. I've got 3 weeks time. I'm at Scaffold Pike, so that's when I'll give them a proper serious test when I'm up there doing Sea to Summit at Scaffold Pike. So until then, we need to make sure they're right from the stomach. And I would say to anyone who wants to test them, don't go straight out and think you're going to take loads of these on your ultra runs. Test them in short doses, make sure they're right for your stomach, and then go out and test them on a big full ultra before you even think about using them in a race.
And please, if you do test them out, please give us feedback because we want to know whether it's a right fit for podcasts to enter into a partnership agreement with these guys.
Too right. Too right.
Right, Alan. I think that's most of the notes all sewn up. We did well, actually. We covered a few notes that had been lingering on there for quite a while. So proud of us. And I don't think we went too far over our usual, just over an hour. But as our good friend Sophia would say, this was definitely a unhurried full.
Yes, definitely.
And on that, I'll say it's goodbye from me.
And listeners, you take care, you stay safe, you keep on running, and we'll speak to you all soon. Bye.